Lead. Adaejah Hodge running for a little redemption after that 100, depending on what.
1063. Let's start with there. What was the plan going into that?
Honestly, the plan was to execute. Over the last couple of weeks, I've been working on my block clearance, making sure to go back front and not pushing off of both at the same time.
A 20-year-old college sophomore just ran faster than Sha'Carri Richardson ever has. Not at the Olympics, not in a Diamond League final, and not in a World Championship race. It happened in a preliminary heat at the NCAA Championships in Eugene, Oregon. Adaejah Hodge crossed the line in 10.63 seconds, a time that pushed her into history's top 5 and shattered one of collegiate track's most respected records. For 7 years, Richardson's 10.75 from 2019 had survived every challenger. Keep that number in mind, because Hodge's path from 10.77 to 10.63 would become the clearest sign that something extraordinary was building. But before Eugene, before the record, and before the comparisons with Richardson, the story actually began in Tortola, where Adaejah Hodge was born in 2006 in the British Virgin Islands, a Caribbean territory with fewer than 35,000 people. She was raised by her mother, Tanya Hodge, alongside her siblings Adanya and Dean. At 9 years old, her family moved to Douglasville, Georgia, outside Atlanta. It was more than a change of address. It meant a new country, a new school system, a new culture, and a new identity. Yet Hodge never detached herself from where she came from. She continued representing the British Virgin Islands internationally while developing inside the American sprinting system. That dual identity became one of the defining threads of her career. She carried the expectations of a tiny island nation while testing herself against elite young athletes in the United States. By the time she reached Montverde Academy in Florida, the talent was impossible to ignore. At the 2022 Carifta Games in Jamaica, Hodge became the first athlete from the British Virgin Islands to win the Astin Seeley Award given to the meet's outstanding performer. She was only 16 years old. A year later, she set the World U20 Indoor 200-meter record at 22.33 seconds in Boston. She also reached the 200-meter semifinals at the Senior World Athletics Championships in Budapest, racing experienced professionals. Then came 2024. At the World U20 Championships in Lima, Hodge won gold in the 200 meters and silver in the 100. Weeks later, she carried the British Virgin Islands flag at the Paris Olympics opening ceremony. At 18, she was a World U20 champion, an Olympian, and one of sprinting's brightest young talents. Everything appeared to be moving upward. Then the story changed. In August 2024, during the same season that brought international medals and Olympic recognition, Hodge tested positive for the banned substance GW5015-116. Her World U20 medals were removed, and the Athletics Integrity Unit suspended her for 17 months, from August 2024 through January 2026. The case did not become public until March 2026 after the suspension ended. According to the AIU, the delayed announcement was connected to Hodge's cooperation with a broader investigation, and that cooperation contributed to a reduced sentence. The facts were serious, and so were the consequences. A teenager who had just represented her country at the Olympics disappeared from major competition for a season. She missed the 2025 NCAA Championships and the World Championships in Tokyo while other athletes raced, improved, and built momentum. But the deeper challenge came with the return. By the time the case became public, people had already started defining Hodge by the suspension. When criticism followed, she responded directly, saying she knew the truth behind what happened and dismissing many of the attacks as hate. Whatever people believed, one thing was clear: her comeback would not be judged by explanations alone. In sprinting, eventually everything comes back to the clock. In January 2026, Hodge returned to competition as a redshirt sophomore at the University of Georgia. On March 14, she won the NCAA Indoor 200-meter title. 2 days later, details of her suspension were announced publicly. Redemption and reckoning had landed in the same week. Skeptics had reasons to question her. There was a positive test, stripped medals, and a lost season. What nobody knew yet was how quickly the conversation was about to change. 5 weeks later, at the Tom Jones Memorial in Gainesville, Florida, Hodge ran 10.77 seconds in the 100 meters. It was a British Virgin Islands national record and second fastest in NCAA history. More importantly, it placed her only 0.02 of a second behind Richardson's 10.75 collegiate record. Suddenly, the number that had survived 7 years no longer looked permanent. Hodge had not broken it yet, but she had put the entire sprinting world on notice. Then came Eugene. Hayward Field was already hosting a historic NCAA Championships. One day earlier, Auburn's Jacoby Tharp had broken the outright world record in the 110-meter hurdles with a 12.75. The meet already felt extraordinary before the women's 100 began. Hodge entered the preliminaries as second fastest in NCAA history. She knew the target. Everyone watching knew it too, 10.75. Most expected a challenge. Very few expected what happened when the clock stopped. On June 11, 2026, the conditions were nearly ideal. 77 degrees, sunshine, and a legal 1.9 meter per second tailwind. Hodge settled into the blocks, the gun fired. She attacked the first steps, accelerated through the middle, and stayed composed through the line. Then the number appeared on the board, 10.63 seconds, not 10.74, not 10.73, 10.63. She had not edged past Richardson's record. She had destroyed it by 0.12 of a second. The performance made Hodge the fastest woman in NCAA history, established a world U20 record, and moved her to 5th on the all-time women's 100-meter list. Only 4 women had ever run faster: Florence Griffith Joyner, Elaine Thompson-Herah, Shelley Ann Fraser-Price, and Melissa Jefferson Wooden. That was the company Hodge entered in a college preliminary heat, with the final still ahead. And here is what made the number even louder. Richardson's personal best, the fastest 100 meters of her career, came when she won the 2023 world title in Budapest in 10.65 seconds. Hodge had just gone faster. Not in an Olympic final, not in a world championship final, in an NCAA preliminary round. 3 days later, Richardson opened her 2026 season at the LA Grand Prix with a 10.99 victory. It was respectable, but still more than 0.3 slower than Hodge's Eugene performance. That comparison fueled headlines, but one race does not settle a rivalry between athletes who have never raced. Richardson has years of championship experience. Hodge is still building her career. What 10.63 changed was not the result of an imaginary head-to-head. It changed the level of the conversation. Hodge was no longer merely a talented athlete returning from suspension. She had produced a time-demanding comparison with the sport's best. The NCAA final delivered another reminder. Sprinting does not care what happened 2 days earlier. Hodge had the chance to complete a historic weekend with the 100-meter title, but Jamaica's Shelley Ann Walker won in 10.88, leaving Hodge second. The record holder had lost the final. For many athletes, that might have swallowed the rest of the meet. Hodge still had another race. Hours later, she returned for the 200-meter final and changed the tone again. She pulled away from the field and crossed in 21.68 seconds, breaking Abby Steiner's collegiate record of 21.8 from 2022 and winning the NCAA outdoor title. In one meet, Hodge produced a historic 100, broke 2 collegiate records, finished runner-up in one final, and won another. The comeback was no longer theoretical, it was visible on the clock. That mattered because the suspension did not disappear when she started winning again. The stripped medals, criticism, and lost season remain part of her story. Hodge did not erase them, and she did not need to pretend they never happened. What she controlled was what came next. Her career had been interrupted, but interruption is not the same thing as an ending. For 7 years, Sha'Carri Richardson owned the NCAA 100-meter record. She went on to become a 3-time world champion, an Olympic medalist, and one of the world's most recognizable sprinters. Now that collegiate record belongs to Hodge, Richardson and Hodge have never raced, but track has a way of eventually bringing the fastest athletes onto the same starting line. Los Angeles 2028 could create that moment. Hodge will be 22, entering what could be the prime of her career. Richardson will be an experienced champion still chasing individual Olympic 100-meter gold. If both continue on their current paths, one future starting line could place a proven world champion beside the young sprinter who on one unforgettable night in Eugene ran faster than Richardson ever had. And suddenly, the future of women's sprinting looked far more interesting than before. So the questions have changed. Can Hodge make the Olympic final in Los Angeles? Can she lower 10.63 before she gets there? And when she finally lines up against Richardson, will that college preliminary in Eugene still stand as the night everything changed? The answer is still somewhere ahead. But Adaejah Hodge has already proved one thing: she is no longer simply chasing history, she is creating it.